Welcome to a rainy day in Rio freaking de Janeiro, Brasilia! Woo! This place is freaking awesome. And yes, while some of the scenes and pictures that I've been posting to Facebook and Twitter et al. Have been of the beautiful, spectacular, sunny beaches of Copacabana Beach or Ipanema, or even up at Christ Redeemer on the mountain overlooking the most awesome, one of the most awesome cities in the world, Rio de Janeiro. It is indeed a tropical climate, which means that it's pretty much the same temperature year-round, 80 to 90 degrees every damn day, but it also means that it rains quite a bit. And although we are not in the rainy season here in November, mostly it rains from, say, December to March, it's a rainy day here today as dusk is approaching in Rio de Janeiro. And many of you, a lot of you, have been hitting me up asking me for like 6 months to a year now, even people who aren't in the class currently, about what's going on with Brazil, what's going on with Rio, what's going on with the World Cup and the Olympics, because Rio is a fantastico awesome city that is going to be hosting two major international events. The World Cup is going down in 2014. Hey, that's next year. And in 2016, the World Olympics being hosted right here in Rio. And a lot of you have been asking, hey, what's up with that? How's the city changing? How's the country dealing with that? What's up with Brazil? So let's do a quick podcast, although nothing's ever really quick here in a rainy day in Rio de Janeiro. Let's do a quick / not so quick podcast about what's up with Brazil, what's up with Rio, and how are these big international events affecting this very international city. Hear the alarms going off and the police going off all over the place already. And that's going to figure into this because Brazil is a fascinating place and an increasingly important world power player. And Rio, not the capital of Brazil, not even the biggest city of Brazil, but Rio, the cultural capital, an epicenter of all things Brazil, plays figuratively in what's going on with these two big international events and Rio's future. All right, let's get to it and do it. First off, Brazil as a country. This place is hot, man. It's happening. Brazil is the B in the BRICS, the B-R-I-C-S, see, yes. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the BRICS are the up-and-coming, fast-developing, great places to invest centers of planet Earth. These are perhaps not fully developed, but quickly developing countries on planet Earth whose economies are going forward at a fairly brisk rate. Most of them not going forward in terms of the awesome double-digit GDP growth rates that, say, China has, but Brazil, like all the other BRICS, been moving forward even despite the world recession that all of the rich countries have kind of been floundering through for the last few years. The BRICS countries have been going forward at a nice little clip, and Brazil is right there amongst them with a decent 4, 5, or 6% GDP growth rate for, like, I don't know, a decade. It's been kind of like quietly moving forward. And it's because of that, because Brazil is, and here's where you start doing bullet points in your notes, Brazil is Latin America's biggest country by land area. Brazil is Latin America's biggest economy by all measures. Total GDP, perhaps even GDP per capita, I don't know. But certainly the most gigantic country in terms of total GDP. Brazil is the most populous Latin American country. Brazil is to South America and Latin America what the USA is to North America. That is, Brazil is a giant among all the other countries around it, much the same way that the United States is the giant in North America. And Brazil and the United States are the two giants within the Americas as a whole. Brazil, much like the United States, is a leader in Latin America. The biggest population, the biggest economy, the biggest state, it is the giant amongst all other Latin American countries. That is a situation that's not likely to change anytime soon. And then you put on top of that that Brazil's economy has been happening. That of its, I don't know, 192 million or 200 million citizens, Brazil's economy has been going forward, and Brazil's people have been getting richer, much like China. The middle class of Brazil is growing and growing and growing and growing. It's not just that a few business people or an upper echelon of Brazil is getting richer, it's that the middle class of Brazil is getting richer. These are more people with more money that can then buy more stuff within their country, which keeps the economic pie increasing, but also the economic ball rolling. That's why Brazil is now what we call a middle power. Kind of like a middle kingdom. Nah, we're not talking like J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle Kingdom world in The Hobbit. We're talking a middle power on planet Earth. It's not really a China. It's not really a USA. It's not really a Russia. It's like a tier down. I put Brazil in with other second-tier world powers like, say, Turkey or South Africa, or other regional powers that are important enough to be affecting things on other parts of the planet. Brazil's in that category. And now that brings us to what I meant to podcast about from the second one, which is Brazil is going to be the host of the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 World Olympics. These are an exceptionally big deal. And they're a big deal because only big boy countries do things like win the Olympic bid or host the World Cup. This is what big boy countries do. It's either that or that they have space programs and they go land on the moon. China's going to go land on the moon, okay? Russia and China working collectively might be get to Mars. Brazil's not doing that, but they are up at the level where they are going to be hosting these epic, huge, big deal world events that are putting them up at the next tier of world power status. Do you feel my love for Brazil coming through here? Now, that brings us to me being specifically in Rio right now. What does it mean to a country who's going to host these huge Titanic world events? Well, first off, all countries spend millions and maybe hundreds of millions of dollars trying to win the right to host these things. All these countries put in a bid to be able to host the World Cup or host the Olympics. And then it goes through a committee for like 1 or 2 or 5 years. I don't know how it works, where they say the Olympic Committee gets together and decides, okay, who will be the host country for the 2016? Who will be the host country for 2020 for the Olympics? It's a big drawn out deal where shit tons of money is infused into the process where these countries are desperate to win this event. Okay, Brazil won. And it not just won the Olympics, it won the World Cup back to back. And so what does that mean for the country? Well, it's a status thing already. I've mentioned this several times that, wow, this is what big boy rich countries that are able to pull this off, you're in the next level up. And that's the only way you are able to win these bids, is that other countries recognize the fact you could do it, that you have enough money and you have the political will and you're stable enough to pull off these big boy international events. So they won it. Okay, what does that mean for the local people? By the way, isn't this an awesome scene behind me, even though it's raining like hell now? What you see right behind me is evidence of what this means for Brazil immediately. That is this whole area where I'm at right now. And I'm in North Brazil. I say North Rio, I'm sorry. South Rio is over that way. That's where all the famous beaches are. They're beautiful, they're already fully developed. Nothing's happening there in terms of for the Olympics. We're in North Rio. West Rio is, of course, off that way to the west. And all these parts of Rio are kind of subdivided by the mountain chains that you see, these hill chains that are like 2,000 to 3,000 feet high. And they kind of separate different parts of this awesome world city. And most of the action for the Olympics is going to be here in North Rio. I keep saying Brazil. North Rio, this is kind of the business epicenter. This is where the central business district is. This is where the bulk of, say, the economic activity for Rio is. The south is mostly tourist and beaches. The west and northwest is where a lot of the manufacturing is, a lot of where the favelas are. The growth of the city has moved that way westward as this city has gone from a city of maybe 2 to 3 million 50 years ago to 10 or 12 million in today's world. By the way, side note, Rio is like the 3rd largest urban center in all of Latin America after Mexico City and Sao Paulo off to the south. This is the 3rd most gigantic urban area in Latin America, one of the top 10 biggest world cities on planet Earth, after places like New York City and Tokyo and LA and, I don't know, London. So this is an epic big boy city in an epic big boy country that's kind of up and coming. But back to the Olympics. What does it mean for Rio that they're going to host the Olympics? The World Cup is a soccer event, football for everyone else outside the United States, but soccer event for us United States folks. Estados Unidos. The soccer tournament's happening in 2014. That's a countrywide event. So some of those soccer games will happen in Rio, but there are also stadiums all across the country while they host the World Cup. So there's not as much pressure on Rio to have to build like 20 soccer stadiums. That's not going to happen. They're revamping their biggest soccer stadium, and they're probably going to build a couple more. That has actually already been underway for a couple years since they won the bid for that. The Olympics is a much bigger deal because the Olympics is for a specific city, and Rio is hosting 100% of the Olympics for the entire planet Earth. And so the second they won the bid for that, which has been, I think, 2 years ago now, they started an immediate massive infusion of capital has come into Rio to be able to build 100% of the facilities to host 100% of the World Olympics. And I can tell you just from pointing to that pier right behind you, okay? They're revamping this entire gigantic pier. It's probably going to be completely and utterly leveled and expanded times 2 or 3 in the next 2 years to be ready for the 2016 Olympics, to be able to handle enough ship traffic and tourist traffic just right here. And you want to pan a little bit, Katie? You can see that the construction is happening all over the place. This is all a construction area right here. Keep panning around. You can see that crane over there. I'm going to jump around. The cranes over here are revamping this entire elevated highway system, everything underneath of it. That whole hotel is being revamped. Keep panning with me. This entire area right here, I talked to the locals, all of this is going to be leveled in the next year to 2 years to accommodate even more facilities. I don't even, it's going to be like a mall and hotels and whatever else. All of this is getting leveled. Everything under the ground from this entire area that we've just now panned through, all of that's getting leveled and tore up so they can build a whole new subway system. So subway systems, bus systems, elevated highway systems, all of this stuff has to be redone to be able to accommodate in a pretty much a 2-week time period, be able to accommodate millions, perhaps tens of millions, I don't even know, perhaps tens of millions of international visitors to this one city that already has 10 or 12 million people in it, all for this 2-week Olympics period. It's insane. I have no idea why any city/country would actually want this. But Brazil did want it. And they want it. And they want it mostly so they get national respect. It elevates you to a category of we're an important second-tier world power, and they do have that status now. But also you think, well, that means that they get a bunch of monetary benefits from hosting the Olympics. That's what a lot of people think. I don't know. I remain unconvinced, as do many Brazilians. What do you actually get? And again, I've talked to lots of people locally, and I said, hey, so what do you think? I mean, is this like a really great thing? And yeah, it's like, yeah, and no, not so much. The yes is, yes, there's a certain sense of national pride that Brazil has come into its own. For the first time in history, Brazil is a significant world power player. You got that. And everybody loves sports. So anytime Brazil is going to win and, oh yeah, Brazil made it to the final of the World Cup, woo! National pride, yeah! Sports brings out national pride perhaps more than anything else. That or a war where you won. So there's that. Is it going to make Brazilians richer? Probably not so much. There's tons of investment being made here in Rio de Janeiro to be prepared for this World Cup, or World Cup / Olympics, because they have to do it. Is it going to benefit the common person? Maybe. It's certainly creating jobs right this second. I don't know how many tens of thousands of people are being employed to redo this whole downtown strip here that we're at to accommodate the Olympics and build these stadiums and soccer stadiums and track and field stadiums and volleyball courts and everything else that has to go with the Olympics. So there's a certain level of job creation for the next couple years to prepare for it. Or there's permanent jobs? No. Okay. So it's a 2-year to 3-year temporary job and construction boom. That's good for people that own construction companies. Woohoo! That's good for people that get temporary jobs. Woohoo! Who else benefits? Anybody who caters to tourists. So as millions of tourists float in here for these games, people who sell food, who sell beverages, hotels, they're gonna have a big boom for a couple of weeks. Again, a couple of weeks for the World Cup and a couple of weeks for the Olympics. It can be argued, and it often is by economists and others, that yes, we'll make a bunch of money for a couple of weeks off the tourists, but all the locals are gonna haul ass out of town to completely miss all this mess. So maybe it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. You lose local business and you gain international business. Maybe you're not gonna make that much money in the long term after all, or even for the short term. So tourism is kind of a mixed bag because it's so concentrated for such a short period of time. All right? So are most Brazilians really happy about the World Cup and the Olympics coming here? And now this brings it full circle to current events. Because many of you, perhaps, have heard about protests and uprisings and people rioting in Brazil in the last 6 months. What the hell was that all about? I've already told you in this single podcast, which has already gone way too long, that hey, Brazil's happening. Brazil's getting richer. It's getting richer as a country, and the middle class is growing, which means they can consume more and they can buy more, which means domestically the economy's rolling, everything's getting better, right? So why would people protest? Because it ain't getting better, good enough in all the right ways. And the protest that broke out, and again, I'm trying to think of the timeline here, I want to say it's been about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe 6 months. The protest, and I believe they started in Rio, were about rising bus fares. And if you are a shallow consumer of international news, that's all you heard. If you watch American news, that's all you heard because they're so clueless, they don't understand issues enough to actually report them to you. So the story 5 months ago would have been, Rio raises bus fares and people go ballistic and start burning everything down, aren't they crazy? But there's something to it, and it actually has to do with that pier, this construction, the World Cup, and the Olympics, and the state of Brazil all pulled together. And that is that while Brazil is getting richer, it's not getting richer enough for enough Brazilians. Yes, they're getting better. Yes, it's a vibrant economy. Yes, it's awesome, but not for all 195 Brazilians. And when they raised bus fares here in Rio, they raised bus fares, by the way, who takes buses? Who rides buses? Mostly poor working class and lower middle working class. The people who can afford it the least are the people that ride buses, and they're the ones that got basically taxed by an increase in bus fares. And so it's those folks and Brazilians across the country that said, WTF, are you kidding me? Our government is spending, and this is the official figures I've heard, our government is spending $70 billion, billion with a B, $billion on the Olympics so that we can be a proud nation and we can look good for 2 weeks. $70 billion for national pride. And in order to pay that, you're making us working class saps pay more for bus fares in order to cover that. And that is what they say. Tell me if I get this wrong, Katie. The folks who told me this said, Asta. I don't know if it's Hasta or Asta. 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 Enough. Enough. This is crazy. We're getting richer, yes, but our services suck. Police corruption is rife. There's still a hell ton of desperately poor people in this country. Wealth disparity is increasing. So some people are getting richer and the middle class is getting better. But there's still millions of people who live below the poverty line. And you want us, while you spend money on soccer stadiums, you want us to pay more for bus fares? Enough! Enough! This is preposterous! And that's why people took to the street and got all fired up. You have, and Rio is a lovely place. I know it's a little rainy right now, looks a little bleak, but trust me, it's awesome. One of the most beautiful cities on the planet, in one of the most vibrant, awesome countries on the planet. Wealth disparity is so bad. Actually, for those of you who have been following my podcast around the world, it's very similar to South Africa. Very similar. Wonderful place where if you're in the upper middle class and upper class, it's gorgeous and it's beautiful and it's awesome. If you happen to not be that rich, you're in desperate poverty, okay? So you have this clash, this tearing apart of society, where the society overall is getting richer, but a lot of people are kind of in the lower tier getting left behind. And they've just said, this is preposterous, this is enough. Our government, who's getting richer, is not doing enough for the people. That's what people were protesting about. It wasn't about bus fares, it's about everything. It's about everything. And crime here in this beautiful city is out of control. It's preposterous. You actually can't really even go on the beach of Copacabana because you can get robbed in broad daylight with 5,000 people around you. You can get robbed. And then people are like, well, that kind of sucks. Yeah, because, well, maybe I should call the local police. No, the locals laugh about that. Like, no, the local police are corrupt as hell. So you have crime that's out of control. And if you've ever seen City of God, you understand the favelas, the slums that are on the outskirts of the city and really big, that are semi-lawless, which, by the way, the Brazilian government is trying to get rid of them to prepare for the Olympics, just trying to bulldoze them. So you have high rates of crime, violent crime in some cases. You have absolutely corrupt levels in the police themselves. So people are like, well, the police are crooked too, so who the hell are you going to call for crime? So that's an issue too. But you know what the worst part is? In a country that's getting wickedly richer, the politicians are more corrupt than anybody, than all the other people. So people here in Brazil have this feeling that, okay, our country's getting richer, but it's mostly the politicians who are corrupt as hell and stealing as much as they can. The police who are corrupt as hell and are taking as much as they can at street level, who are supposed to be protecting us from the thugs, who are not corrupt, they're openly criminal and taking all they can. And the government is not doing enough to protect us, the people, while our society is supposedly getting richer and richer and richer, and we're paying $70 billion to host an international event. That is what those protests were all about. That is at the essence of the biggest issue within Brazilian society as a whole, not just in Rio. Rio's the epicenter of this. It's the crystallization of all this, since they're going to be the host of these 2016 Olympics. By the way, I don't want to end on a negative note, because Katie's been giving me the wrap-up signal for like 10 minutes now. It's a podcast in the rain. I can go as long as I want. 23 minutes? What's 23 minutes? This is all for good fun. It's for knowledge. It's for education's sake, Katie. Come on. So, Rio is the crystallization of all of this angst within Brazilian society. And I'm going to end on a positive note. Brazil is doing better. Brazil is the richest economy, the biggest population, the most up-and-coming, biggest regional leader by far in Latin America. And they're going to keep going forward. But they're going to have to take it to the next level. The government, it has to clean up its act, and it has to clean up the police act, and it has to get a handle on crime. It's hoping it can do all this in the next 2 years, but that remains to be seen. They're going to pull off the World Cup because it's hosted all around the country, and it's going to be awesome. This place loves soccer. Brazil is a powerhouse of soccer / football on planet Earth. They'll pull that off, and it's going to be great. The Olympics is a much trickier deal because it's so concentrated here in Rio, a very important city for Brazil, a very important city for the Olympics, and a very important city to determine the future of this up-and-coming second-tier awesome world power, the state of Brazil. But for now, we'll cut it. Party on from Rio de Janeiro.